We'll now move to question time, and I call Senator Scarr.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Attorney-General, Senator Watt. Minister, which ministers were involved in any way, including seeing briefs for noting, in the approval of the settlement proposal in the Ms Higgins matter?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
Senator Scarr, when you asked questions about this the other day, I made the point that I am surprised that nearly 2 weeks after this whole alleged scandal started, the opposition, including you, continue to ask questions that are predicated on court documents that were leaked to the media and were only available to a very small number of people. Now, I saw the reporting of these court documents in The Australian when it was first reported, and I remember it saying that the documents were held by a very small number of people. A couple of names were given. I'm not going to repeat those names here, but a couple of names were given in that article as to people who had access to that documentation. It also said that the government, as in the Albanese government, had access to that documentation. I failed to see how it was in the interest of the Albanese government to provide to leak to the media private court documents that are now being pursued by the opposition in this chamber.
Please resume your seat. Senator Scarr.
Relevance, Madam President. There was nothing in the question dealing with court documents.
Order.
It's about the settlement. There's no reference to any court document. The settlement is in the public domain.
Thank you. Order. 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 The minister is being relevant to the first part of your question. I'm happy to draw him to the second part of your question. Minister Watt.
So Senator Scarr's defence is that the court documents are in the public domain. I wonder how that happened. The settlement was in the public domain. I've also seen all sorts of speculation by members of the opposition as to the quantum of that settlement, which has never been revealed. You know why? Because it's confidential. Because settlements between parties in a mediation, as you well know, Senator Scarr, are confidential.
Order.
And despite your legal experience and the legal experience of the Shadow Attorney-General, you continue to come into this chamber and ask questions about a settlement that is confidential between parties. You should know that, and you should know better than that.
Seat. I am not going to constantly, moment after moment, call for order in this chamber. If I call for order, I want senators to come to order, not continue to call out across the chamber. It's incredibly disorderly. Senator O'Sullivan.
Yeah, point of order. If you could just ask the minister to refer through you, Chair.
I remind all senators, and I will remind the minister, to direct his answers to the chair, and that goes for all senators in this place. Minister Watt.
As I said the other day when I answered questions from Senator Scarr about this point, and as we have said consistently, as Senator Gallagher has said consistently and others as well, the claim that we are talking about from an alleged rape victim that is the subject of these questions was managed consistently with the Commonwealth's obligations under the Legal Services Direction 2017. I am shocked that the opposition continue to ask questions about this matter, but I guess we can't expect any better.
Senator Scarr.
Thank you, Madam President. I note my questions have no reference to court documents or to settlement sum. Did the Attorney-General or his office have any verbal or written communications with the Prime Minister in relation to the settlement in the Ms Higgins matter prior to the matter being settled? If so, when?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
As I've said, President, Ms Higgins' claim was managed consistently with the Commonwealth's obligations under the Legal Services Direction. The terms of settlement and the claim were managed in accordance with legal principle and practice and informed by external legal advice. The parties agreed that the terms of the settlement and the settlement process, including mediation, are confidential, and it would appear the only people who can't respect that principle are members of the opposition who continue to ask about this. As I say, I cannot believe that nearly 2 weeks into this we continue to have questions from the opposition. No, it's not all about me. It's all about an alleged survivor of rape. That's who it's actually about. That's who it's about. And you people don't have the decency to respect that, and you come in and use question time day after day to trawl over these documents that were leaked to the media by someone who had access to the documents, and leaked text messages by someone who had access to those text messages.
Order. Senator Scarr, I haven't called you. Once again, I have to call the chamber to order. Minister, you have 3 more seconds if you wish to continue.
This has been a test of the decency of the opposition. They have failed. We have completely upheld the principle.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Scarr, second supplement.
Thank you, President. I note that we haven't received any meaningful answers to these process questions. Did the Attorney-General or his office have any verbal or written communications with any other minister in relation to the settlement in the Ms Higgins matter prior to it being settled? If so, who and when?
Thank you, Senator Scarr. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. Well, unfortunately, the strategy of the opposition over the last 2 weeks to trawl over leaked court documents and leaked text messages involving an alleged survivor of rape.
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Scarr.
Thank you, President. Relevance. This is a very directed question with respect to who knew what when.
And you've also mentioned the word settlement, and I think I can't direct the minister. I can't put words in the minister's mouth, and he can address the question in whatever way he chooses, as long as he is relevant. And I will continue to listen carefully, Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. As I say, the strategy of the opposition over the last couple of weeks has failed so spectacularly that they are now having to try to retrofit this strategy by clutching at straws and looking for things that don't actually exist to justify the indecent questions that they have spent the best part of 2 weeks questioning. Now, when people look back—
Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Senator Henderson, I just called you to order. I've now had to sit the minister down and call you to order again. I would ask you to listen in silence. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. I have no doubt that people will look back on the last 2 weeks to judge the relative character of the government and the opposition and the way they have dealt with these matters. There are any number of questions that the government could have asked of the opposition over the last couple of weeks, given the way things have turned out. And how many of them have we asked? Not one. Because some of us in this chamber have some decency, some of us in this chamber have some character. Unfortunately, there doesn't look like there's a lot of it over there.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Urquhart.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The Liberals and Nationals neglected the healthcare system. They left public hospitals under enormous strain, medical staff exhausted, a GP shortage, a bulk billing system on the verge of collapse.
Senator Urquhart, I'm very sorry to have to sit you down mid-question. Order on my left, and the interjections across the chamber are incredibly disorderly, Senator Henderson. Senator Urquhart, if you would begin your question again, please, and reset the clock.
Thank you. The Liberals and Nationals neglected the healthcare system. They left public hospitals under enormous strain, medical staff exhausted, a GP shortage, a bulk billing system on the verge of collapse and out-of-pocket costs skyrocketing. The Albanese government is investing to strengthen Medicare and improve health services for all Australians. Why is Medicare a priority for the Albanese government, and why is the government investing to deliver better health care for all Australians?
Thank you, Senator Urquhart. Senator Birmingham.
President, can I ask you, please, on a point of order, Standing Order 73.1, to review the prelude to the question that was asked there? Notice an increasing use in terms of questions by the opposition, in terms of making statements by the government. Thank you. Of making statements.
Order.
Of making statements in their questions. Statements that
Order.
I think, in terms of the rules for questions under 73.1, the questions shall not contain arguments, they shall not contain imputations and other factors that are listed there that they shall not contain, that the government is starting to, whilst there is a latitude given, the government is starting to abuse that latitude in terms of the extent of arguments that are made in the questions that are put. The opportunity to make those arguments exists in the answers that ministers get to make, rather than the questions asked by those opposite.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. I certainly will. Senator
on the point
Senator
of
Wong,
order,
on the point
President,
of order.
whilst you do that, I wonder if you could review with the same lens and by the same principles that this man articulates the question this senator articulates.
Order.
This senator articulates
Order.
all of the questions that the opposition have asked this week. to see if they can meet their own principles. I know they're baying, but you don't like the fact that principle might apply to you, do you?
Order. 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 Order on my left. Order. Senator McGrath, I have just called the chamber to order and you are being disorderly, along with a number of other senators. I would ask senators to reflect on what happened. We had Senator Birmingham on his feet and it was largely silent in here. Senator Birmingham is entitled to make whatever point of order he does, and he was listened to in respectful silence. Senator Wong is also able to make a contribution on the same point of order, and yet the chamber becomes disorderly. This is not appropriate. Senator Urquhart, I believe you finished your question. Senator Wong. Senator Wong, I'm asking you to respond to Senator Urquhart's question.
Thank you. Well, I'm very happy to talk about Medicare. I know those opposite may not be. But Labor built Medicare, and unlike those opposite, we will always protect it. And our government is delivering stronger foundations, a better future for all Australians. And I know you really can't bear it, can you, Senator Henderson, that we might actually care about Medicare. I know in your DNA, the coalition DNA, they've never supported Medicare.
Senator Wong. Constant interjections are disorderly. Senator Henderson and Senator McGrath. Minister Wong, please continue.
Thank you, President. I'm trying to work out if it's just me or the word Medicare which triggers that reflex. Here we go again. Here we go again. You see, we know that cutting Medicare is in the Liberal DNA. You simply can't trust the Liberals and the National on Medicare. The party of the GP tax, the party that tried to charge for emergency department visits, the party that's all about increasing the cost of medicine and now opposing the reduction in the cost of medicine. You see, unlike those opposite, we take Medicare seriously because Labor always has, President. Labor always have. Look at what we are delivering. We are tripling the bulk billing incentives for children, benefiting all.
Order on both sides of the chamber. Order. There are too many interjections, senator to senator, across the chamber. Senators are entitled to ask their questions and to have them answered in silence. Please stop the disrespectful interjections across the chamber. Minister Wong.
The evidence in what we have already delivered as a government or are delivering, tripling the bulk billing incentives for children, a benefit to all Australian families and the most vulnerable, helping pensioners and concession card holders, cutting the price of PBS medicines down from $42.50 to $30, reducing the cost of medicines through a 60-day dispensive that will save general medicine patients hundreds of dollars a year, also opposed by the coalition. We are investing in the healthcare workforce and we are delivering a $1.5 billion boost to indexation of Medicare rebates, a $1.5 billion boost. Senator Ruston, I know you hate it, but we are the party of Medicare. We are the party of Medicare and you are not.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Order. Senators across the chamber. Senator McAllister. Senator Urquhart, first supplementary.
After the Liberals and Nationals neglected the healthcare system over nearly a decade, primary healthcare in this country was in urgent need of repair. How is the Albanese Labor government rebuilding primary healthcare in Australia, and why is this so important?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator Urquhart, for that question. Well, from fast and affordable access to a GP to crucial check-ups to prevent serious illness, the Albanese government understands the importance of primary health care and is investing in it. It's vital for people, it's vital for Australians, and it's also vital for the healthcare system, because without strong primary healthcare, emergency departments and local hospitals face extra pressure. And we know this. How do we know this? We know this because that's what happened under them. That's what happened under them. We know those opposite deliberately ran down Medicare and general practice. We know that Mr Dutton Mr Dutton, in his first budget as Health Minister, tried to abolish bulk billing. Oh, this side is very quiet now, are they? You tried to abolish bulk billing. That's Peter Dutton's real plan for Medicare. He wanted to abolish bulk billing.
Minister Wong, the time for answering has expired. Order. Order. Senator Urquhart, second supplementary.
The Australian National Audit Office recently released their report into the administration of Community Health and Hospitals program. What were the findings of this review, and why is it important that every health dollar is invested wisely?
Minister Wong.
Well, we do know not only did Mr Dutton try to introduce a GP tax, and we do know what happened under the Morrison government and the way in which Medicare was run down, but it wasn't just that they didn't care, they were also prepared to rort it. And the Australian National Audit Office report lays bare the rorts and mismanagement of the government that was populated by those opposite. And you know what the Audit Office found? That your program was used. The Community Health and Hospital program was effectively a $2 billion slush fund. A $2 billion slush fund engaged in with no regard for proper process or good governance, and I'll quote, the report found that the administration of grants was, quote, not appropriate, involving deliberate breaches of relevant legal requirements and the principles underpinning them. Maybe Senator Cash, you might want to talk about legal requirements.
Minister Wong, the time for answering has expired. Senator Davey.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Minister, during question time on Tuesday of this week, in answer to my colleague Senator McDonald regarding media commentary that comprehensively agrees that you misled the Senate, you said, and I quote, "I cannot control what other people write about this. Maybe they don't understand it." End quote. Minister, are you seriously claiming that some of Australia's most senior and respected political commentators all failed to understand your public explanations of this matter? Why are you so unwilling to acknowledge that you did in fact mislead the Senate, apologise and appropriately correct the record?
Thank you, Senator Davey. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, it's virtually an identical question to the question I was asked by Senator McDonald. And so I've answered the question. I refer the senator to the statement I've given, and in conjunction with that statement, 39 questions. In fact, this is question number 40 that I've answered over the past 8 sitting days.
Senator Davey, first supplementary.
Yes, we won't count some other questioning that happened. Look, in the same response to Senator McDonald, during question time on Tuesday regarding that media commentary—
Senator Davey, please resume your seat. Once again, senators, interjections across the chamber are disorderly. Senator Davey has a right to ask her question in silence. Could you reset the clock? And Senator Davey, would you mind starting again, please?
Thank you. In the same response to Senator McDonald, you said regarding the media commentary, and I quote, "None of them have spoken to me about it. Certainly they haven't spoken to me about it in the last few weeks." End quote. Minister, at any time have any of the journalists mentioned in the original question contacted you or your office asking for an interview or put written questions to you about the timing of when you first knew of the sexual assault allegations?
Thank you, Senator Davey. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. I've got nothing further to add. I refer you to the statement that I've provided to the Senate and the answers that I've given.
Senator Ruston. Senator Davey, second supplementary.
On that, I specifically asked it was
Senator
new
Davey,
information.
there's no point of order because the minister's finished her answer, so I invite you to your second supplementary.
Minister, isn't it the case that the reason some of the most respected political observers in this country wrote that you've misled the Senate is because you actually did mislead the Senate? Minister, how can the Australian people trust this government unless you admit that you misled the Senate and simply correct the record?
Thank you, Senator Davey. Minister Gallagher.
I either refer the senator to the statement I provided to the Senate 8 days ago.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Steele-John.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Foreign Minister, Senator Wong. Israel's government is the most far-right and extremist in the nation's—
Sorry, Senator Wong, on a point of order. Sorry, Senator.
I just wonder if we could start again. There seemed to be a lot of noise on that. But I would like to— I'm very interested in the question, obviously, so I can respond to it.
I remind senators that once again the interjections across the chamber were disorderly and did not give Senator Steele-John an opportunity to ask his question, nor the senator to whom it was directed the chance to hear it. I'm asking for silence. Senator Steele-John, if you wouldn't mind starting again. Thanks.
Thank you. My question is to Senator Wong, the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Israel's government is the most far-right and extremist in the nation's history. Two of its most senior ministers, Ministers Smostridge and Gavia, are proud and open racists and bigots. Finance Minister Smostridge has said that there is no such thing as Palestinians because there are no such things as a Palestinian people. He has called for a Palestinian town to be wiped out. He is also a proud, open homophobe. National Security Minister Ben Gavir has attended so-called beast pride parades against gay pride, in which individual religious activists lead goats and donkeys through the streets and hoist banners calling queer people impure. He has also pledged to crush Palestinians one by one. When will the Foreign Minister issue a boycott against any Australian government representative meeting with these two individuals?
Minister Wong.
Well, the first point I would make, if I may, given the issue of Israel, given the question goes to Israel, is to express that we are obviously deeply saddened by the murder of 4 Israeli citizens in a terror attack overnight, and we condemn this act and make the point that terrorism and violence against civilians can never be justified. And we urgently call upon all parties to exercise restraint. And I would again say what I've said many times, which is the reminder for leaders to work together to foster the conditions necessary for tolerance and peace. I don't propose to respond to all of the propositions you put to me. The fact that we engage with a country does not mean we agree with every statement made by an office holder of a country. You've heard me say, for example, in relation to China, we will cooperate where we can, disagree where we must, and engage in our national interests. We have a view as a government that engagement matters, and we will continue to engage with members of the Israeli government as is appropriate and necessary, and we intend to judge the government on the policies it pursues and to make our views known when we need to. Australia has been and is a friend of Israel, and that means we can also indicate our view on matters on which we disagree. And I hope you wouldn't need me to respond to some of the propositions you have made with an indication that obviously I and the members of the government do not agree with some of the views in relation to LGBTQI people that you have articulated or you have reported. But that is a different issue.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Steele-John, first supplementary.
Well, speaking of the policies pursued by the State of Israel, these individuals are members of a government which is enacting a system of race-based oppression and domination towards Palestinians. There is a name for such a system, Minister: apartheid. Human Rights Watch recognise it, Amnesty International recognises it, Palestinian and Israeli human rights groups recognise it, and the Greens recognise it. When will the Australian government recognise the reality of Israel's system
thank you,
of
Senator
apartheid?
Steele-John. The time for asking has expired. Senator Wong.
I'll make a number of points. The first is We, as a responsible international actor, will continue to encourage all parties to engage in negotiations for a just and enduring two-state solution. The Australian government is committed to a two-state solution in which Israel and a future Palestinian state coexist in peace and security within internationally recognised borders. I would make this point also. I understand that there are many people in this country who feel deeply about these issues on both sides of the debate. And just as I was critical of Mr Morrison's move during the Wentworth by-election, I would also urge all parties now to not use sensitive issues to play domestic political games. This is a very difficult issue. This is a very difficult issue.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Steele-John,
Minister,
second supplementary.
Minister, you won't recognise the reality of apartheid. You won't boycott meetings with these particular individuals. Will you at least recognise the statehood of Palestinians, joining with 138 countries that have done so, and in line with the motion passed by your very own Victorian Labor Party State Conference?
Minister Wong.
I think the question itself made clear your agenda on this. And as always, as so often, it's about the Labor Party. It's about the Labor Party. Oh, well, thank you. I'll take the interjection. He says yes. It's not about the Palestinian people. It's not about the Israeli people. It's not about peace.
Senator Steele-John.
It's not about progress towards a two-state solution. It's about you running a political campaign against the Labor Party. So thank you for acknowledging that, Senator Steele-John, that this difficult issue, which is in many ways quite tragic for those of us who have watched and hoped for peace in the Middle East and a peaceful conclusion to a two-state solution, it is tragic. But it's really clear that there are those in this debate who want to try and find a way through, who want to try and do what is the principal thing for Australia and the position we should articulate on a range of the issues you've articulated, and those who want to play.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Social Services, Senator Farrell. Minister, I know, and those of us on this side know, that raising children while juggling work commitments can be challenging for many Australian families. And we know that parents, employers, unions, gender experts and economists are united in their understanding that providing more choice, more support and more flexibility for families and more opportunity for women boosts workforce participation and productivity across the economy. Can the Minister please outline for the Chamber how the Albanese government's paid parental leave changes will deliver more choice, more support and greater flexibility to working families?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President. And Senator Stewart, thank you for that very fine question. And I know you have a very deep interest in this area, personal and otherwise. So, in our first year, the Albanese Labor government has not wasted a day delivering a better future for all Australians. This government is making it easier for working families to get ahead. On the 1st of July next week, our changes to the paid parental leave come into effect, giving about 180,000 families access to a more flexible payment that promotes shared care. As a result of our changes, not only will more parents have access to the government payment, they will also have more flexibility in how they transition back to work and how they share care between them. This was an important first step for better paid parental leave, but there is more to be done, and that is why, over the coming months, we will introduce further legislation to provide families with an extra 6 weeks by 2026. That's an extra $5,000 in paid leave based on current rates. Improving paid parental leave is a critical reform. It is critical for families, it's critical for women, and it's critical for the economy. Paid parental leave is an important Labor legacy, and I'm very proud, as I know you would be, Senator Stewart, to be part of a government building on that legacy and delivering for Australian women and families.
Thank you, Senator Farrell. Senator Stewart, first supplementary.
Thank you. I am incredibly proud to be a part of a government that prioritises women. Minister, we know the government is committed to ensuring that children grow older, families in difficult circumstances continue to receive the support that they need. That as children grow older, families in difficult circumstances continue to receive the support they need. Can the minister outline how the Albanese government will support these families, including any new measures or arrangement that will start with the new financial year?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Stewart for her first supplementary question. And yes, I can provide an answer to that question. Paid parental leave is just one measure alongside many other investments in families across this government. Also, on the 1st of July, more than 1.3 million families will receive an increase to their family payments through indexation to help with the cost of living. A family with two children who receive the family tax benefit, Part A and Part B, could receive around $50 extra per fortnight. And on the 1st of July, our improvements to the Child Support Scheme come into effect, making it easier to collect child support debts and helping to prevent future debts by improving income accuracy for low-income parents. We've been clear that this is the first step in the government's longer-term strategy to improve—
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Stewart, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Around the country, many Australian families are doing it tough right now. We know they're feeling the pinch of cost of living pressures. Could the minister please explain what supports the government is providing more broadly across the social services portfolio to support families with children?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Stewart for her second supplementary question. And yes, I can provide an answer to that question. Families will also be better off thanks to our budget package to help with the cost of living, which includes $1.9 billion to strengthen the safety net for single parents. From the 20th of September 2023, 57,000 low-income single parents will receive an additional $176.90 per fortnight. We're also delivering the largest increase to rent assistance in more than— Yes, Senator Wong, the largest increase in more than 30 years, with our additional investment helping around 130,000 low to middle-income families pay the rent. In addition, both the single-parent payment and the rent assistance will be indexed on the 20th of September to help keep pace with the cost of living. Our actions over the last 12 months demonstrate how
the time for answering has expired. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health, Senator Gallagher. Referencing Freedom of Information number 4293 from the Department of Health on the censoring of Craig Kelly's tweet when he was a duly elected member of federal parliament representing and serving the people of Hughes. This was a political tweet. It criticised the use of police in COVID measures, criticised the constant fear-mongering and, quite correctly, alerted the public to the adverse mental health outcomes from lockdowns. Minister, why and on what authority did the Health Department censor a sitting member of parliament?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Thank you, President. I thank Senator Roberts for the question, and I think we did, from my memory, have quite a discussion about this at Senate estimates and the process that the Department of Health went through, working, as I recall, with the Department of Home Affairs to raise concerns around misinformation that was being circulated during essentially a national state of emergency during the COVID-19 pandemic. So these are decisions that were taken in the former parliament when the COVID pandemic was at its peak, and I think there was agreement that health had a role in ensuring that information that was going out was as accurate as it could be, but also that it didn't it didn't generate unnecessary concerns around the fact that we were, or the government had taken a decision, the previous government, around a national vaccination program. I'm not specifically aware of the tweet to which you refer, but that is my understanding of the evidence that was given at estimates, that the Department of Health did not censor information, but they did, where concerns were brought to their attention, they did follow through and work from memory with the Department of Home Affairs around how to manage some of that misinformation and ensure as much as possible that information out in the community was accurate about the response from the Australian government at the time.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
Thank you. The censoring was recently disclosed publicly under your government. Mr Kelly was criticising public policy. How many more members of parliament have been censored across the COVID period from February 2020 to February 2023? And how many more social media posts from members of parliament have been censored across this COVID period? And at what level was the decision taken to censor? Was it departmental, ministerial or prime ministerial?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
I'll have to go back to the transcript of evidence from estimates, but my recollection was it was the platforms themselves that made decisions about what information they allow on their platforms. There was certainly a role for the Department of Health to ensure as much as possible that information circulating through whatever communication channel was, as much as it could be, accurate and reflect health information in the middle of a national emergency. As I recall from the time, there was a lot of misinformation out and about, and I think from a public health point of view it's not unusual for public health officials to raise concerns if misinformation is being circulated. But that was done from memory in referred to Home Affairs. Home Affairs, and then
Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. Now that this censorship has been disclosed publicly during your government's term, has the minister sought legal advice on the constitutional implications of interfering with a member of parliament in the performance of their duty?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Roberts for his supplementary. And again, I don't have the information he refers to, but I would just repeat my earlier answer that the department specifically did not censor any information relating to any public official. As far as I can recall, the evidence at estimates, and I wasn't in government at the time that these matters were being handled, but from evidence from the department was that they did not censor, but where information was raised and where that information was inaccurate, they did refer some matters on, and then ultimately it's the decision of the platform where that information was circulating about what they did with that information.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cash.
Thank you. And my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Gallagher. Last Friday evening, during the committee stage for the Constitutional Alteration Bill, I asked Senator Watt, will the Voice have the freedom to determine the issues on which it makes representations? Senator Watt replied, yes. Yesterday in the other place, Minister Burney said, I can tell you what the Voice will not be giving advice on. It won't be giving advice on parking tickets. It won't be giving advice on changing Australia Day. Minister, who is right, Minister Watt or Minister Burney? Will the Voice have the freedom to determine the issues on which it makes representations, yes or no?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I understand this matter has been raised in the House as well today, and I can confirm, and the Attorney-General I think has made this clear, that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice will be able to make representations on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. This means matters specific to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and matters which affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples differently. And we know what those issues are, and I think it is unfortunate but not unexpected that we have a continuing campaign here which essentially seeks to misrepresent a modest request from
Senator Pratt.
Australia's First Peoples through the Uluru Statement from the Heart about a voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution, and we know what matters affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples differently. Gaps in education, gaps in employment, gaps in opportunity, gaps in health, gaps in life expectancy. These are the matters that affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Sorry, Senator Thorpe, it's not an entire list, but I'm trying, in the time available to me, to make it clear that the Attorney-General and others have made it clear it is a modest request, and those opposite seek to misrepresent this at every single opportunity. And we're getting a taste of just what the next few months are going to be like. And I would call on people to exercise their privileged position in this place responsibly.
The time has expired. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Minister, yesterday in the other place, Minister Burney said the voice was primarily about recognition and listening. Yet earlier yesterday, Pat Anderson AO, a leading member of the referendum working group, told Radio National, "It's really important for the voters to understand that this advisory body will be able to sit and negotiate with the Parliament and the executive government of the day." Can the minister confirm the proposed voice will, as Pat Anderson AO says, be able to actively negotiate matters with Parliament and executive government?
Order. Senator Pratt. Senator Cash, you've asked your question. I would now ask that you listen respectfully, and that goes across the chamber. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Thank you, and I thank Senator Cash for the question. And again, I would just start off where I finished, which is I think there is a role for us to be accurate and not seek to divide Australia.
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Cash, you've asked the question. The minister is answering. Your interjections are disorderly. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. As I've said, the voice itself, and I would remind people that the detail of that final design is actually up to the Parliament to resolve. It's up to the Parliament, but we have order. But we are very supportive of implementing the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full, which includes a voice to the nation's Parliament enshrined through the Constitution, recognition through the Constitution of Australia's First Peoples, and listening to what Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people
Thank you, Minister. The time
say.
for answering has expired. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Minister, for the Australian people who will vote at this referendum, can you please confirm for the record that the voice will be able to give advice to the government and or the executive on absolutely any issue it chooses to do so, including abolishing Australia Day?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Order. Order. Order across the chamber. Minister Gallagher.
Okay. Well, I have answered
Minister,
this.
please resume your seat. Senator Cash and Watt, the interjections across the chamber are disorderly. The question's been asked. The minister was on her feet. She's entitled to give an answer. And senators are to listen in respectful silence. Minister.
Thank you. Thank you, President. And I would say again that the power of the Parliament will not change through this referendum question. And the Attorney-General has said Senator McCarthy has said, Minister Watt has said, I have said that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice will be able to make representations to the Parliament and Executive Government on matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. That is the position. That is the advice from the government. The shape of that, of course, will be determined by this place, where everybody has the opportunity to have a say. The first step, of course, is through the referendum question to the Australian people, where every Australian who's able to will have the opportunity to have a say, and then it will be to the Parliament.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Thorpe.
President, my question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians. Minister Burney has declared that the Voice will not provide advice on issues that do not specifically affect First Peoples. On what premise is Minister Burney stating that Australia Day, which clearly affects First Nations people and is a day of mourning for us, does not fall within the remit of the Voice?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister Gallagher.
And here we thank you, President. I thank Senator Thorpe for the question, and it relates to the question I've just answered from a different point of view, but a similar answer to the question that Senator Cash just asked me. We've made it clear that the Voice will be an advisory body made up of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians who may make representations to governments on issues that affect their communities. It's that simple. On matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and we understand what many of those representations will be towards, including in terms of the programs and supports.
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator Thorpe.
President, just on relevance, the question was around Australia Day, or Invasion Day, as we call it.
Senator,
it does affect First Nations people.
Senator Thorpe, order. When you raise a point of order, it goes to what the minister is responding to. The minister is being relevant, and I will listen carefully to the remainder of her answer. Thank you, Senator Thorpe.
Thank you, President. In relation to Australia Day, it is not the policy of this government to change the day of Australia Day, and I do understand, and I have talked with many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who have very strong views about Australia Day, similar to yours, Senator Thorpe. But the Voice will give advice. It is not a decision-making body. And it's clear from the question we are putting to the Australian people that the Parliament passed, the Senate passed on Saturday morning, that the power of the Parliament will not change. The Voice may give advice, but the Parliament retains its primacy and the Parliament will make laws. But we, again, see huge benefit that will come from having a voice that is advisory to speak directly to this Parliament and the Executive, representing local communities, local First Nations communities, about issues that they care deeply about and want to have a say about in terms of government decision-making. It is a positive change. It's a change that seeks to unite Australia, not to divide Australia. And we look forward to all Australians having the opportunity to vote in later.
Senator Thorpe, first supplementary.
When military bases are on First Nations land and close to First Nations communities, and those communities therefore at higher risk of military attacks than others, why can the Voice not provide advice on military policies?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I go back to my previous answer. The Voice will be an advisory body and it will make representations to government on issues that affect their communities. Matters matters relating to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, specific to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and which affect Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people differently. And I think we can all accept that there are a number of those areas: employment, opportunity, education, housing, support, payment support, life expectancy, incarceration, a whole range of areas where governments with the best of intentions and the best of wills—
please resume your seat. Senators Thorpe and Cash, the interjections are disorderly and I would ask that you listen in silence. Minister Gallagher.
Will be some of the matters that I imagine, once the voice is established, will provide advice to this parliament and executive government on. And that is the whole purpose behind the voice and what was sought from at Uluru at that historic
Minister.
gathering.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Thorpe, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. How can the voice be a self-determining body for First Nations people when it can't even determine what matters to us?
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. And I would again remind people that the parliament will have a say in the shape of the voice through the debate. We will have the Constitution referendum question put. The request from Uluru at that historic gathering was for voice and treaty and truth. We are committed to implementing the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. We see it as a gracious offering to unite the country, to walk together, to recognise Australia's First People.
Please resume your seat. Senator Thorpe.
Thank you, President. Again, on relevance, this was about how self-determination is determined with what you're talking about here. Self-determination. I don't know what your explanation for self-determination is, but it certainly ain't ours.
Thank you, Senator Thorpe. The minister has gone back to the Uluru Statement of the Heart in answering your question, and I believe that she is being relevant. Minister, please. Senator Thorpe, it's not a debating point, Minister.
Thank you.
Minister Gallagher, is this Senator Thorpe? Senator Thorpe, let me go first. Do you wish to raise a second point of order? Then please go ahead.
Thank you, President. This is on relevance, and it's around self-determination. I don't believe that the minister is addressing the issue of self-determination, and the Uluru Statement of the Heart is not a definition of self-determination.
Well, Senator Thorpe, that becomes a debating point. You've asked me if the minister is being relevant to your question. I believe that she is, and I'll continue to listen carefully to the remainder of her answer. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. And I think the principles that underpin the voice that have been consulted on and released provide some of the information that Senator Thorpe is seeking.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Green.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Early Childhood Education, Senator Watt. The Albanese Labor government has made making early learning more affordable for families a priority of our first year in government. The government clearly recognises the critical role early learning plays in a child's development and boosting our economic prosperity by supporting workforce participation. Why has the government made early learning a priority, and what changes is the government making to the childcare subsidy from July? How will these changes impact on Australian families, easing cost of living pressures?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Green. I know this is a topic very dear to your heart, with baby Stevie now participating in early childhood education herself. And what a bright young woman she'll turn out to be, I've got no doubt. The Albanese government has made early learning a priority of our first year. We've done this because we know how important affordable early learning is, and we know that for too many families the cost of early learning has put it out of reach. Unfortunately, under the Liberals and Nationals, out-of-pocket costs for early learning went up by 49%. That's not helping cost of living pressures, I don't think, is it? And we, on the other hand, are taking action to ease cost of living pressures on Australian families by making early learning more affordable. From July, our changes to the childcare subsidy will boost the maximum subsidy rate to 90% for families earning $80,000 or less. And Jared, we know you don't like childcare, and we know what you've had to say about Dorothy and childcare and things like that.
Senator Watt, Senator Watt, I do remind you to direct your answers to the chair. Senator Rennick.
Of order, could he withdraw that? I very much care about childcare, no more than an important role that mothers and fathers play in raising their children.
Senator Rennick, that is not a point of order. I'm not going. This order, order, order. I don't believe Senator Watt was reflecting adversely. Senator Watt, please. Order, order. Order. Senator McGrath, you are out of order. Senator Wong.
Apologise. Senator McGrath's disrespect of you. Thank you.
Order. Order. Order on my left. When there's silence, I will respond. Senator Rennick, I did not understand that was what Senator Watt said, but as he said it, I will invite him, if he thinks it needs to be withdrawn, to withdraw it. Senator Watt.
I'm happy to review the Hansard. But I'm also happy to withdraw.
Senator
Calm
Watt.
down.
Senator Watt.
Calm down.
Senator Watt.
Under you bellowing.
Senator Watt, please resume your seat. And once again, Senator Watt, order. Once again, Senator Watt, please address your responses to me. I asked you, and I didn't explain this fully, and my apologies if I didn't, in a spirit of goodwill, if it upsets Senator Rennick, as it appears to, I'm inviting you to withdraw. And Senator Watt.
Did you withdraw? And I withdraw, and I thank President. And under Senator McGrath's bellowing, I was actually saying that I was withdrawing.
Senator Watt, I'm going to ask you to sit down again. That is very unhelpful when I ask senators to with order, and that is unhelpful as well, Senator McKenzie. When I ask senators to withdraw, I just ask them to withdraw without adding any other comments, and I'm going to invite you to do that. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, President.
Senator McGrath, please sit down. Whoever did that calling out then, that also was very unhelpful and disrespectful. If I ask a senator to withdraw in this place, I'm doing it. Order, order, order across the chamber. When senators are asked to withdraw, it is a serious matter and it should be treated that way. Minister, please continue.
Thank you, President. As I was saying, from July, our changes to the childcare subsidy will boost the maximum subsidy rate to 90% for families earning $80,000 or less. We're also boosting the subsidy rates for around 96% of families with a child in care earning under $530,000. Our changes will also introduce a base level of 36 subsidised hours of early learning per fortnight for First Nations children. First Nations children will have access to the base level of subsidised hours, regardless of their family activities. These changes will deliver more affordable early childhood education and care for around 1.2 million families, including 265,000 in rural and regional Australia. Our reforms will help more children access the powerful benefits of early childhood education and provide real cost of living relief for families. We're making these changes because we know that investing in early education is good for children, it's good for families and it's good for the country.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Green, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Affordable early learning pays a triple dividend. It's good for children, good for families and it's good for the economy. But the evidence also shows that some groups in the community benefit from investments in early learning. Can the minister advise of any specific groups that will benefit from the changes that the childcare subsidy that will come into effect in July this year?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Watt.
Thank you again, Senator Green. I'm pleased to say that over 1.2 million families in Australia will benefit from the changes to the childcare subsidy. But I do want to take the time to draw attention to two groups that we know will particularly benefit from the changes, the first being Australian women, who we know are often primary carers. We know that the high costs for early learning act as a massive disincentive for women to get back into the workforce, and our changes will give Australian women more choice. More women in the workforce will make a real difference for our economy, as well as empowering them and making a difference to their families. The second group that will benefit from this in particular are First Nations children and families. Our changes, which will introduce a base level of 36 subsidised hours of early learning per fortnight for First Nations children, regardless of activity. This will build on our government's commitment to closing the gap and ensure that First Nations children get the best start in life. As many as 6,000 First Nations families will benefit from these changes, in addition to the many other Australian families who will too.
Expired. Senator Green, second supplementary.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Minister. Making early learning more affordable for families is a vital reform, providing immediate cost of living relief to families. But affordability is just one part of the government's agenda. Minister, what other actions is the Albanese Labor government taking to build a world-class, flexible early education system?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you again, Senator Green. Well, I'm pleased to say the Albanese government is also looking to the future, taking action to build an early education system that is fit for purpose, one that will ensure all children have access to transformational benefits of high-quality early learning, a system that supports parents and provides them with more choice. We have tasked the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission with inquiring into the drivers of costs in the system, and we've commissioned a comprehensive review also to be undertaken by the Productivity Commission. These reviews will help our government navigate the path to building a more sustainable early childhood education system. We are also investing in the early childhood education workforce, recognising the critical role they play in children's lives. As part of this year's budget, we have invested $72.4 million in a workforce package focused on access to professional development and upskilling. Our government values early education. We value the people who work in education, early education, and we're investing in making early learning more affordable while building a world-class system.
Expired. Minister Wong.
There you go.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.
Thank you.